Well, I'm still dealing with this crap. It's nearly gone, but my God, this has taken forever. And it's an unbelievable pain in the ass. But anyway, here we are. I hope everyone's keeping well and life is being good for you. Today is a topic I've wanted to talk about for a while, and it seems to be coming to a head now, considering being the whole Pride Month thing and everything. And the question is Womanface, i.e. fellas dressing up as women and wearing women's makeup to look and wigs and stuff, drag queens, is that the left's acceptable bigotry? In the sense that it's the left's version of the black and white minstrel shows. When I was a kid, they used to have on TV and the BBC a show called the Black and White Minstrel Show. And it wasn't meant to be racist. It was mostly white fellas blacked up and singing like American, oh, mommy, nah, nah, that kind of thing. It was a big show on the BBC, and it was quite a common form of entertainment back then. It wasn't done with any hatred or anything like that. But it was still wrong. It was still bigoted, and it was still the language of the oppressor, and it was unfair to black males, especially, for lots of reasons. One, they're being put out of a job by a white fella who's blacked up in entertainment, and also it's dehumanizing in lots of ways, and it may not have been. I mean, was Al Jolson, who did the Jazz Singer, was he a bigot? I don't think he was. I just think that it was a different time, but it became bigoted after a while. That's probably the case of it. As society matured in terms of being a bit more sensitive to people and minority groups, it became offensive, and that's probably a good way to put it. But it was never a good thing to begin with, really, not for black men anyway. And so, quite rightly, we don't have the black and white minstrel show anymore. We don't have Al Jolson type singers who are blacked up and black faced, except for Justin Trudeau, ironically. But so now this argument is being put forward to fellas who dress up in drag or trans people. Is Womanface, playing on the blackface thing, is Womanface a bigotry, an acceptable bigotry of the left? Well, the answer is yes and no. And I'll tell you, first of all, I'll tell you why it's not bigotry. If the drag queen has talent, by that I mean if they've got real talent, if they've got star power, charisma. I'm talking about Paul O'Grady, I'm talking about Danny LaRue, and they can sing and tell jokes and entertain an audience and have a real sense of charismatic power about them, which, my God, Paul O'Grady as Lily Savage has in spades. You can see that is a genuine art form. That's a genuine art form, and it's not in any way offensive to women. It's because nowhere was Danny LaRue or Mr. Pussy or Paul O'Grady trying to say, I am the same as a woman. This is the important thing. It was an actor playing a character and doing it professionally, and in such a way that there was genuine levels of entertainment. It was creating caricatures like cartoon. Lily Savage is almost like the Scouse version of a Simpsons character. In many ways, how he does. Very, very funny, very talented guy. That's when it's not offensive, because it's a form of art. And I have no problem with that. And you should never censor any kind of art form. When it's not acceptable is when it's just a bloke dressing up in women's clothes and doing in such a way to make to degrade women. I'm talking about people fellas who put on for instance, you get a certain type of drag queen who deliberately chooses to look like a dysfunctional female. And it's definitely a mockery of women. It's definitely bigotry. It's definitely Womanface in that sense. Now, it's definitely offensive. And it's also something that someone shouldn't support. There's no way anyone should give stardom to a, a, a person whose only ability is to dress up as a woman. And I'm thinking of people like the classic here in Ireland, Panty Bliss. That guy Panty Bliss has no talent. He is just one thing, a bloke dressed up like a woman. Therefore, Womanface. If he was really great at singing and dancing and telling jokes and approached it in an artistic form, I would say, well, fair enough. That is an artist involved in expressing their craft through this sort of transformative, almost alchemical ability to transform into a female character in order to deliver the art. No, that's just a bloke in clothes. That's all it is. You could do it, I could do it. That's not worthy of any kind of accolade in terms of stardom, in terms of anything like that. Now, because it also comes from a place of incredible mediocrity, that's why the Irish National TV station here in Ireland employs these things, because mediocrity is the engine that runs RTE, the Irish National Propaganda Service. So before they have him doing the Queen's address at Christmas, and he's just reading out a stupid speech. It's not even funny or anything. It's not even interesting. It's not nothing. And and there was another one before him called Shirley Temple Bar, who somehow got a gig reading out the lotto numbers. Just another guy who could dress up. Nothing else going on there, and reading out numbers on the lotto when they call it the lotto numbers. And then for some reason he decided he wasn't going to do drag anymore, and his spectacular lack of talent came screaming through in spades. So that's the whole thing. If you are just dressing, and this goes to this drag queen story time. There are people that don't have any talent. They're not artists. They're not performers. If they were, that's because they're looking for jobs in children's television and things like that. That's all. It's a money making thing, and I've no problem with anyone making money. But if you want to make money, be talented. Don't be doing it. Just don't be getting money for just dressing up like a woman. And you're also putting a woman out of a job. Okay. And that's another thing. That's the other aspect of it. We cannot be having a situation what we're having now where women are being made obsolete. Natural biological women are being made obsolete. You now have a thing called birthing persons. No, there's only one kind of person in this world that's a woman, and that's someone who's born a woman. I don't care. I mean, if you feel like you have to transition, that's your own business. That's good for you. If that you think is going to make you better in your life, you're still a man though, because every cell in your body is a male cell, as a male chromosome. So you're not. It's only a superficial thing, as well as the actual brutality of that surgery, which doesn't sound very pleasant or anything. It's almost like, well, if they're going to go to that level, I kind of like, well. But then again, if they're adults, that's their own business. But it's again, I think a lot of women look. Let's call a spade here, right? There is nothing cool about pride. Nothing. Maybe pride 10 years ago might have been a bit kind of cool, and pride now. The majority of people who do pride now, they are borderline housewife Karens, who tell everybody their son is non-binary to get back at their ex-husbands who ran off on them and things like that. They're people, the most lame people are into pride. Pride is mainstream, lame-o, suburbanite white trash at this point. It is as far from cool, urbane, queer, interesting as you can absolutely possibly get. It is the most lame mainstream thing possible. and therefore it attracts lame mainstream people. In 25, 30 years ago, if you were in Ireland and you were gay, it took work to be gay. Now, I'm not saying they should have laws like against, and of course with that kind of, but you really had to work at being gay. Therefore, you have to develop a charisma or a personal cachet in life in order for you to negotiate the difficulties and the challenges of being a gay person in straight society. And some didn't do so well and some did very well, but one of the ways you could do that would be to kind of like be kind of an open queer in an old-fashioned queer sense, the Quentin Quispe. But that still took enormous balls, that still took enormous effort. Nowadays it's like it's so lame and mainstream that if I was an old-fashioned queer, I'd almost feel like, what are all these amateurs doing in my scene? That's how it actually feel. When you see county councils and trains around Dublin putting on pride colours and stuff, and county council running, drag queen story time, totally inappropriate. I have no problem. I was looking at that. They have every other event at a gay pride thing. I have no problem with. But this drag teams stay away from the fucking kids. Let them decide their own way. But again, it's 9 times out of 10 it's the parents who are to blame, because it's usually some woke mother and father, if there is a father around. But normally it's some Karen type who brings her kid along so she can boast about it in social media and get likes. It's so lame. It's so there's pride. Anything once it goes. I mean, I'm from the old-fashioned world. That once something goes mainstream, it loses its power. It loses its power. You know the old joke, the New Musical Express. If a band released their first single, they were considered cool and edgy. But if they had released their first album, they were considered sellouts. I wouldn't go that far, but I'm definitely from that world. I'm definitely from the world that once it goes mainstream, it's no longer cool. It's no longer edgy, and it no longer requires bravery and fortitude in order to negotiate it. It literally just means putting on a wig or dressing up or anything like that. And it seems to me now, it's just like mediocrity is pride is a gigantic festival of mediocrity. Mediocre people who compensate for being nothing in this life, having no talent and no ability, dressing up as women, wearing skirts and makeup. And I'm sorry, in that case, it's Womanface. It's Womanface. Because it's not done for any other reason other than to cover for their own lack of talent, and at the same time it's often done in such a way to make women either look like sluts or whores or dishevelled kind of like washed up alcoholics or something like that. It's extremely misogynistic in that case. Where when you have someone like Lily Savage doing it, she does it, it's not like that at all. It's an art form. It's not meant. It's not. It's not done as a sort of like degrading attack on women. It's an art. It's real art. It's real art when those guys do it, and it's the same thing. I described Panty Bliss once as a guy as drag queens goes. He's playing air guitar. That's what I described him once as. He's an air guitar drag queen. And that's when it's Womanface. When you have no talent, you're an air guitar drag queen, and you're not an artist or a performer, and all you're doing is taking the piss out of women. And yes, in that case, it is offensive and it is misogynistic.